Hi guys, Andres again here to take you to another of these virtual tours we're doing. This time I'm going to take you to one of the most exciting destinations that we have in South America. In the bucket list of most of you is the Pantanal in Amazon. That's how we call the tour, even though this tour actually takes place in three main ecosystems that are well marked and very different from each other. This is initially in the Cerrado, a very dry area in the center of Brazil. The Amazon rainforest, of course, very different from that, and the Pantanal, a really flat area that drains its water very slowly from the rainy season to the dry season, and we visit it when it is dry, and we can actually enter and pass through some of the places there. It's one of the best places to actually see these puppies here, the kitties, the jaguar, the mighty jaguar, and we put for those couple days at the end of the tour to find it. So yeah, let me show you while we listen to some of the birds that we see in this region. Let me start with what I'd like is showing on the map where will this tour take place, and in this case is right here in the center of Brazil. You see, Brazil is so huge, and this is other places that we do tours in northeast and southeast Brazil, but the Pantanal is in these flat areas right in here, and we take one flight in the middle of the tour to go here to the south part of the Amazon rainforest. This is the basin, you see. We fly over here, that it is the south of the Amazon, as I was saying, in the area of Cristalino Jungle Lodge. Okay, so let me show you where we'll start, and we'll start with the Cerrado. Yeah, so the Cerrado is these flat, elevated areas that occur throughout Brazil, in the center of Brazil. And in this case, we'll visit the Cerrado near the city of Cuiabá. This is the start city and the end city of the tour. We fly into Cuiabá, and then we drive for about an hour, this road here, to this area of Chapada dos Guimarães. And I want to show you something really nice here, and why is it so different. Look at these escarpments here. I'm going to try to do one thing here to show you the topography of this area. Notice how the area that we bird here is a little bit higher up in elevation compared to the areas that we initially were in Cuiabá. That's how these areas differentiate in terms of wildlife. So notice that we are about 500 meters higher than the city of Cuiabá, just a little bit cooler, but more than anything it holds a variety of birds that is quite different from what we could find later on in the Pantanal. Okay, so some of the birds that we find in these areas of the Cerrado are really nice, but more than anything, well, first off, let's start with some of these panoramas. This is my first visit to the Cerrado. Was being very touristy, amazed by the ecosystem and the different landscapes that you can see from these areas. Me there posing as if I didn't know that I was being photographed. And as well, some of the viewpoints that we get from this area. You see, in the bottom here would be the area of Cuiabá, and we are a bit higher than that in these areas. We tend to come to these viewpoints late in the afternoon to look for biscuitate swifts that tend to come into roost and other things in there. But first we'll start with visiting these or checking on some of the special birds that we can find in the Cerrado, like this black-throated saltator here. One of the coolest birds that I find in this particular place that I like the most is this coal-crested finch. Not a difficult bird to, not an easy bird to find, but from time to time it gives you good chances to photograph. Probably my favorite of the area, and one that a lot of people want to see and put special attention to, is this guy here. The colored crescent chest is a family that is strictly South American, and is a very small family. So the family chasers, they have a particular target in this cerrado with this colored crescent chest that, as you can see, can eventually cooperate quite well. Other things that we look for in there are antrikes, like this rufous winged antrike. It's a male, beautiful bird. Another of the specialties, red-shouldered macaw, is one of the smallest, if not the smallest of the macaws, really. Shrike-like tanagers, white-eared puffbirds are among the cutest birds in the area. White-rumped tanagers as well are very, very loud. And as you can see, look at all this sky here. Typically the Cerrado is very, very, very sunny. We take advantage and photograph some of the wildlife that it is also easier to find, like this burrowing owl. But whenever it gets just too sunny, because this area of Cerrado is just flat and the vegetation is really short, so we have almost no shadow, when we are at about 8 or at most 9 a.m. it is really hot, the sun is hitting hard, and the activity just dies out. And when that happens, we need to move towards the gallery forests. So that you can see that in perspective, we are birding these areas here. There is the Cerrado right in there, as you can see, is quite flat, quite flat. And when we move down to the gallery forests are just around here. Some of the birds of the gallery forest are more similar to the Amazonian birds than to the Cerrado, like this Amazonian mudmot or this fiery-capped manakin. Another cool manakin, band-tail manakin, is one of the targets that we want to find there. Brown jacamar, Flavescent warbler is another of the specialties of this forest. And this one here is a tough one, but from time to time we do see this pheasant cuckoo. It's a big prize if we find it. Saffron-billed sparrow is a cool bird. For some reason, not for me, but for a lot of people, this is a very, very cool sparrow. I find it okay. Once we have reached the afternoon, late in the afternoon, we move towards these areas here. This is cravens in this area that are a really nice viewpoint that is called the Mirante Geodesico, because apparently this location here is the very, very, very center of South America, right? Right in there. In those areas, we always find things like cliff flycatcher. This subspecies used to be called the swallow flycatcher. Crested black tyrants are there as well. And one of the big targets, rare but possible, orange-breasted falcon. And some of the most, some of the smaller ones, like this wedge-tailed grass finch. Once we are done with the Cerrado, we go back to the city of Cuiabá and fly about an hour and a half to 2 hours to these areas here in Cristalino Jungle Lodge. Notice that it is the southernmost part of the Amazon in there, and we visit these areas. Notice how most of these areas have been already deforested for soy and other things. That's why we visit this particular place. They also protect a lot of land. And this is the Teles Peters River here, and this is the small Cristalino River. And this foundation called the Cristalino Foundation, they protect a vast amount of land, which looks small in the big picture, but it is quite important because the things that they manage to protect here are very, very nice. And this lodge particularly is really, really nice. So we start now with the Amazon, and we visit Cristalino Jungle Lodge. I took this picture from their website. I don't think that they mind when I promote them a little bit. And this is a very nice photo from the canopy that you can see. And that's one of the things that we need to do when we are in the Amazon, is visit the canopy. And for that, Cristalino has 2 different canopy towers that allows you to explore the canopy. And when we are there, even though we are in this super remote area, we are in very, very comfortable rooms. These are the superior rooms. The others are, the standard ones are not as nice, but still super comfortable. The social areas of Cristalino Jungle Lodge are super cool. We tend to do some fires here during the night. Sometimes we have blackish nightjar sitting in these rocks here, and from these trees here sometimes we have a crested owl calling. So no, the area is very nice. As you can see, this is the Cristalino River, and this is the sun deck. A lot of people like taking a bath there, swimming in the river. It's a nice thing, but what we normally do is we move in these canoes up and down the river quite a bit, birding and going to different trails in the place. And yeah, no, the things that we can find in the Amazon are incredible. We spend 5 days here, 5 full days here, and that's why and there's plenty to see here, and that's why I was telling you that it is important about this bird. It's so important that they protect these areas, because things like this can occur. In the canopy, there is an array of tanagers that is very nice, a lot of them, and abundant, like black-faced Dacnys, masked tanagers. One of the coolest ones are Paradise Tanager, or this one here is in its own family of tanagers, a small family now, like 4 members. This is a red-billed pied tanager. Turquoise tanagers as well. This white-winged shrike tanager is one of the coolest things as well, and yellowback tanager. Other things that we can find here that are big targets include this Pompadour cotinga, that it is quite localized, but this is one of the best places to find this. Another cotinga that occurs here is this cool spangled cotinga. And there are some specialties in this particular area that are really good, like Amazonian pygmy owl. Black girdle barbet is one of the big targets of the area because it's quite localized to this portion of the Amazon. And this is another of the really cool things that the Cristalino area is famous for, the very rare and local oldbill, fairy-tail oldbill, very rare hummingbird. Plus, we have a chance to see this guy, the mighty harpy eagle. Every time I've gone there, either we have seen it or a group of other tourists that are staying at the same time at the lodge have seen it. So it's a good deal, it's a good chance to see this bird. We have a ton of different species of parrots and macaws that show up, and we can see them from the tower, like this green wing or the blue and yellow macaws that I just had before. Toucans are super cool. Like these toucanettes and arasaris are so picturesque. This coral-crested arasari. And some other specialties that show up there is shrike vireos, like this gray cap shrike vireo, and purple tufts, white-browed purple tufts. Paradise jacamar, such a cool bird. Pied puffbird is quite widespread, but it's a cool bird. And another ecosystem that we visit here as the river islands. So we bird the river up and down, and we also visit the river islands that are there, and we tend to look for these guys here in the afternoons. Typically these razor-billed curassows are amongst the biggest targets and the biggest prizes that we can find when we bird the rivers here. We especially go for this bird here, that is the Amazonian umbrella bird, and there's a really good place, a lake, that we can find these guys as one of the best places to find it. Some of the most widespread birds in the Amazon, this swallow-winged puffbird, very easy just from the lodge area, quite easily photographable. Some specialties that are not the gaudiest of the birds, but still, Amazonian tyrannulate, for instance, and glossy anthrax are things that we look for when we do these river boat rides. This is an interesting swallow because it only lives in very small river rapids. It's a river rapid specialist, something that it is quite unusual. It's called the black-colored swallow. On the sides of the river, we tend to have a few species of parrots and parakeets or parrotlets that eat the clay, getting the salts out of the soil. So we have dusky-billed parrotlets and also the parakeets, the buff Santarém parakeets. Sorry. There are a couple of species of nighthawks and nightjars that we can find when we visit the river islands. This is a blackish nightjar we tend to find there, and this is the lather-tailed nightjar. We can have also lesser nighthawk in the same areas. For a lot of people, this is a good target as well to find. The green ibis, not easy in other parts of the Amazon, and this is one of the most beautiful birds, especially when it spreads its wings, the sun bittern. This is the first place that we have a chance to see it, but later on in the Pantanal it is also quite possible. In terms of herons, we can have this cool capped heron, but the one that it is a big target is this guy here. This is a zigzag heron. It is a heron that it is smaller than a typical green or striated heron, and it tends to be active, or at least vocally active, only at dusk when it starts to get really dark, and therefore it is quite difficult to find. So this is a tough bird to see, and we can easily see there. And apart from birds, there's also a nice amount of wildlife that we can find around, like the Amazonian tapir. We had one tour in which we had 7 different sightings of tapir. Wow, that was incredible. And the very last tour that I had, we were really lucky because we were just going down slowly on the boat, and I spot this ocelot that came down to the river for some water. That was an incredible thing. Another ecosystem is the forest interior. And there is a bunch of things that we can find in the forest interior that are tough. It's tough because inside the forest it is quite dark and very dense, but the rewards are very interesting. For a lot of people, their main targets are antbirds, and we have a chance to see a few of those, like these black-spotted bear-eye. Cristalino has an interesting thing. It has a couple of places inside the forest that they put some blinds and they put some water. So during the very dry season in Cristalino, there's only a little bit of water inside the forest, and birds congregate to these water holes that they feed. These the guides in Cristalino, they feed, and so many species they come to drink. There's plain-throated anwren, or shingus, ladybacked, scale-backed antbird, spot-winged antrike, and up to 3 species of manakins, like this snow-capped manakin. It's a very cool bird. And even for narids, like the chestnut-winged hookbill, or a striped wood creeper. This one is actually one that I'm pissed about, because I've been there several times and I haven't seen it. But for a while they were having this bird in these blinds. Is a scaled ground cuckoo, a picture of a colleague of mine, George Lynn, who rubs this picture on my face all the time when he can. I wish at some point I could see this bird. I have not been lucky enough. In any case, other things that you can find inside the forest include these scarlet-bellied parakeets, or cryptic forest falcon that is difficult to find, long-tailed patoos, rose-breasted chat, and royal flycatchers. some monkeys as well, white-cheeked spider monkeys, and we can even find ourselves surrounded by white-lipped peccaries. Well, after 5 awesome days in the Amazon, we start with the Pantanal, and for that we have to take the last of the boat rides here in the Amazon, go back here, take the car to the city of Alta Floresta here, and afterwards just take again another flight for about 2 hours down south to the Pantanal. Again, we arrive in the city of Cuiabá, right in here, and from there we will start doing in 6 days this track here. Alright, the Pantanal more or less starts around here. You can see a difference in the ecosystem here, much wetter. And what we do in the Pantanal is we do 2 nights in the northern part of the Pantanal, 2 nights in the center part of the Pantanal, and 2 nights in the southern part of the Pantanal. And also we bird the Transpantaneira, that is this road here. And so we will be starting with the northern part of the Pantanal that starts just south of this small town of Poconé, and the place that we stay at is called the Pousada Piubal. It's just around here. But I warn you, if you had an idea in your mind, a picture of your mind of what the Pantanal looks like, it may be about to change. For me, it did. I always assumed before going to the Pantanal that it is this super incredible, awesome, beautiful place that has a lot of wildlife. And I was right, but only not right in one thing, that it is beautiful. To me, it's not really beautiful. Particularly in terms of the scenery, it's not. You visit there in the driest time of the year, which means that you can actually access the roads into the Pantanal, but also means that it is many times dusty and really, really dry, and the scenery is not particularly nice. You bird a lot in these ranches, especially in the north part of the Pantanal, and you see that the scenery is like really, really flat, not a single mountain in the distance, and even though some water can still be around, enough to get your car stuck if you are not wise enough, like our driver here, that got us stuck there. You can also get in some more drier areas, and like we have here a group, great friends here, and bird around these ranches. But also it can be like this dry. So yeah, the picture that you have in your mind may have changed, but remember that I was telling you that it is absolutely awesome and full of wildlife. Well, yes, it is. The things that you see there just blow your mind, and this is what you are about to see here. Probably the main target when people go to the Pantanal is this guy here, Hyacinth macaws, and they are not hard to find. They are in fact super confiding. These ones were in an afternoon when there was a little bit of water here, and they were drinking in one of the driest times I've ever been to the Pantanal. I was there with a group of people from Alaska, and it was record high temperatures. Yeah, poor guys, they were melting. But birds struggled to find some water, and they went down to the ground a lot, even these parrots. But yeah, as you can see them really close, and they give you all types of different poses and views. So hyacinth macaws, check. Then another family that it is quite a great one is this one, Serriemas. There's only 2, black-legged and red-legged, and here in the Pantanal we go for the red-legged Serriema. Beautiful bird. I don't know if elegant is the correct description, but in any case, it's an impressive one. Everybody wants to see that. It tends to sit on top of these termite mounds, and it is not a small bird. So you can see how big these termite mounds are. Well, we saw this one already, but I just wanted to show you this picture because I just like it. Sunbittern again is quite common in the Pantanal, and the north part especially. And we start seeing these guys, the curassows, bare-faced curassows. This is the male, the previous was the female. You see, the Pantanal, that's the thing, it has a lot of big birds. And so ibises, like this buff-necked ibis, is common there. Several hawks, like a great black hawk, or this one is a crane hawk, or savanna hawks, are all the time present. As well as some of the iconic birds of South America, like greater rheas. This is a nice female just running away from me, and this is a male being really territorial to us and protecting his female right there. Another one that people really want to see when they go to the Pantanal is these alien looking ones, the Jabiru storks. They are huge, really. So this nest is also quite a big one. In terms of other smaller birds, there are not many hummingbirds, but the few that you manage to see is like hermits, for instance, and other things. Rufous-tailed jacamars are common there, and these guys here, kind of evil looking to me. They are gira cuckoos. Bad hair day on those gira cuckoos. There's a couple of night birds that we go for as well, like great potu or Nakunda nighthawks. There's also spot-tailed nighthawks, nightjars, and a couple other things. But sometimes we get lucky and we get these Nakunda nighthawks fairly close and not that late in the day. In terms of passerines that you can see in these drier areas of the Pantanal include like these dull-capped attilas. This is called the soldadinho, or helmeted mannequin. Some wood creepers that are cool, like this one is a big target. I really wanted to see these guys, a great rufous wood creeper and red-billed scythebill. So yeah, other things like Rufus cassiornis representing the passerines, and a very common but picturesque saffron finch. Even some of the most subdued birds like pipits. This is a yellowish pipit. In terms of toucans, we have a couple of species. Chestnut-eared araceli that is also in the Amazon, but this guy here is one of the most iconic birds in South America, present in many different promotional things all over the continent, really. The Tocó toucan, the biggest of the toucans. And in terms of woodpeckers, we have a bunch. White-wedged piculet being the smallest, crimson-crested woodpecker being the most widely distributed, probably. We also have a golden green. Oh, this one is a cool one. White woodpecker. Oof. That's a really cool bird to see. Actually, flocks, several woodpeckers of this species are together many times. And the flickers here are quite impressive, eh? Campo flicker. Now, the Pantanal is famous not only for the birds, but also for big mammals. There's some tours that people do after the big five of South America in terms of mammals. And this is my particular favorite one. This is the beast that I wanted to see the most when I first went to the Pantanal. The giant anteater. Yeah, you see, we were trying to focus on a Serriema, and the giant anteater just decided to photobomb the Serriema. You have to go for the anteater. After all, you can only see so many Serriemas, yeah? Yeah, I like this animal, as you can see. Some other mammals, crab-eating fox. We do typically also some night drives, just like in Africa you do some night drives. We do the same after some of these animals. We get tapirs, we sometimes get these foxes, we crab-eating raccoons, rabbits, a bunch of different things. But then we move down south. We take our path, and after spending some time in the north of the Pantanal, we start moving down these very long straight stretches. And we cross through a bunch of dry areas in this path here. You can see that this picture in Google Earth was taken during the dry time, so you cannot see a lot of water, because everything that you see around here right now is shrinking water holes, and that's why you could see in the picture before this accumulation of caimans that happens here is because everything here used to be underwater, but now because it's in the dry season, it is shrinking the water holes, and there is a bunch of caiman just being there, and together with that a lot of different wildlife as well. And we arrive into the Pishaim area here, where we'll spend the next 2 nights, and where we'll spend the next 2 afternoons in this river doing a couple of very cool boat rides. Along here, along this Pishaim river, is one of the coolest things to do really in the Pantanal, because it's quite relaxed, it's quite nice. We do a little bit of birding also in the gallery forest, but the birding along the forest, the river, is what is the nicest in this particular portion. We look for things like this agami heron, one of the nicest herons in the world, if not the nicest. We have, when it is dry, you see, in June it is not as dry, there is still some water, but by September or so it is even drier, so it's sometimes easier to find these things. So when it is dry, what I mean is that we have more chances of seeing agami heron. Other things that we have, like boat-bill herons in the same family, kokoi herons all over the place, and rufescent tiger herons. Associated with water, of course, sungrebe, one of the best places to see that. A few rails are available, like this great cowled wood rail. And in one only afternoon that we do a 2-hour boat ride, we can eventually get to see, most times we do see the 5 species of South American kingfishers, starting with Amazon, green kingfisher. This is the toughest, really. Green and rufous, but with some effort we tend to get it. Green and rufous. Ringed is all over the place. This is a big bird. And American pygmy. So the 5 we can see in one boat ride in that particular river is very nice. Other birds related to water is black-backed water tyrant, black-capped Donacobius, having an argument there. Yeah, another one. And also there's a couple of hawks that are related to water, like this black-colored hawk, that people from the lodge have managed to do an interesting thing. The staff goes fishing in the afternoons for piranhas, and then they get this fish and they throw it to the hawks that follow the boats, and we get a chance to do some nice shooting after flying birds and try to get these hawks in flight. And not only those, but sometimes like roadside hawks, and even the ringed kingfisher responds, and we try to take flight shots of those. Other things that we can find around here include the cool giant otters, the giant river otters. And then we continue south. Yes, we continue south through this Transpantaneira. This is the Transpantaneira, and this is one of the most iconic things that you see in the Transpantaneira, the bridges, these wooden bridges. Most of them are fine, but there are some that look pretty scary, and you have to cross them. There is like 150 bridges, I think, in 150 kilometers of the Transpantaneira. It's an interesting thing. It's a very, very cool experience. So what we're doing is we're taking the road down south, and in a couple hours drive, birding our way down really, we make this track and go all the way down to the southmost part of the province or the state of Mato Grosso until here, where we stop at the border of the Cuiabá River, and this is our hotel for the next 2 nights. On that ride, we tend to find very nice things like these white-headed marsh tyrant is one of my favorite birds of the Pantanal. Rusty-backed anwrens are really cool. Rusty-colored seed eaters as well. This is a nice male. And some icterids like these white-browed meadowlark, these scarlet-hooded blackbirds, and some other bigger things. This starts getting wetter every time, and so we have these screamers, southern screamers, and we start seeing from the bridges sometimes these sandbanks, and we can get pied lapwings, and you can get also a few terns. There's 3 species in here: yellow-billed, large-billed, and skimmer. Also, we can get in this boat ride or in this ride down south again some tapirs eventually, and we start seeing a ton of capybaras. We get also things like deers. There's like 3 species of deer in this area, and a ton of caimans. They reproduce quite well. The caimans, which is very good for this, the kitties. Yeah, so at this point we arrive here, and from here on we don't see the car in a couple days, but we do boat rides, and we take these boats from here up and down these rivers, and these are speedboats. They are fast boats, they are not canoes, and we go up and down this river, these small tributaries, and what we do is from the boat we go scanning the banks of the river after jaguars. From here on, the main focus is not birding. Even though we get a couple of new birds on the way, on the process, the main target switches to this, the jaguar. This is the very first jaguar that I ever saw in my life. This is a youngster, as you can see, pretty funky looking. And this is one of the ones that I enjoyed the most because it gave us so many different poses to photograph a few years back. The same guy here and the same guy here. It just stayed in this log forever and gave us all angles. Another one, a different year we got, is this jaguar that crossed in front of us and swam across the river several times. So basically what we do in this couple days is we just look for jaguars, and in the process if we see something new we do, but getting sights of these things is the main target. We were really lucky one tour when we found a mom with a couple of cubs going across. This one that was really small was actually attached to the back of the mom as it swam across the river in front of our boat. This one was a little bit older, so he could do it on his own. We move up and down and scan and try to find these jaguars. The most I've seen, the most sightings I've seen is like 3 or 4 in one morning. So the chances of seeing the jaguar, even though you can say that it's never guaranteed, lately it's been quite reliable. This was last year as a female. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. Look at that, those eyes of the jaguar, just beautiful. And yeah, all kinds of poses. Sometimes you see them hunting or going for a kill. Sometimes you see some doing some kill attempts. And last year I was so lucky finding this family. It's not me that actually find it. The boat ride, the captains of the boats have amazing eyes, and they managed to find these guys quite well. So we found initially these 2, and we were just looking at them. They were just sitting there in the bank of the river, and then suddenly a third one shows up, and we say, oh man, there's going to be a confrontation here. It's going to be a fight, cat fight. And as this one here in the center approaches, I thought it was going to be a big fight, and it turned out to be the mom of these two old cubs that were still together with the mom. And then all of a sudden a fourth jaguar appears, and then it was a little bit of a confrontation. The mom went out and slapped away the other jaguar, and it just went away. So this is one of the best things you can ever do in South America. Our time, after seeing a few jaguars and a few different things, has come to an end. In one go, the last day of the tour, we basically ride all these 150 kilometers of dirt road back to the city of Cuiabá. Typically arrive late, fairly late in the afternoon, and come here. There's our hotel just next to the airport, and finish the tour with a nice meal. Typically I take my tour to this rodízio. Is one of the most famous things in Brazilian gastronomy, when about 7 to 8 waiters, they all come with different types of meat that they come fresh from the grill, and you serve yourself. It's just tasty. It's very, very, very nice. It's also really good for vegetarians, because you can see that in my plate there. There's plenty of options for vegetarians, a ton of salads and different things. But for the ones that enjoy meat, I tell you have to try the picanha in Brazil. And that's it. It has come to an end. Or, if you're already here, you can put together a visit to probably Rio de Janeiro and enjoy that, or the beaches. Here we are with my wife in my first visit to Brazil. So I hope you have enjoyed it, guys. I hope you can join me in a real Pantanal tour at some point. Hey, don't forget to watch the other videos by your other guides, and the previous one that I did, Argentina, as well. So have a nice time.